Welcome, Agile friends. My name is Vasco, and we have for you today a star among the topic of leadership, Marshall Goldsmith. In this session, we're going to talk about leadership and AI in leadership specifically. Welcome, Marshall.
So happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here, both, of course, because of everything you've done. I mean, you've been a best-selling author several times in the New York Times list and sold over 3 million books. That's amazing. One could even say you're like the Taylor Swift of AI writing.
Now, that is a little bit of a stretch. As we discussed earlier, Taylor Swift does own the house across from me, so I am sort of her neighbor. She has 15 homes, though, so I'm hardly her only neighbor.
I'm sure she has many. And of course, been ranked twice as Thinkers 50 #1 leadership thinker in the world, and also a #1 executive coach who's coached people, leaders all over the world, and been to more than 100 countries. Marshall started a project recently that takes advantage of AI to help leaders succeed, and we will be learning about that in this talk. So we'll talk with Marshall in a second. Let me just tell you that the Agile Online Summit has many more talks, and you can check them all out at agileonlinesummit.com. So make sure you check that out. But now let's get back to our guest and the topic of leadership. Now, Marshall, you have a long story in the field of leadership and leadership coaching. But what was that pivotal moment in your life that got you started thinking about and wanting to coach leaders all over the world?
Well, there are two things that happened. And number one, I've been phenomenally lucky. I think anyone who's successful and says they're not lucky is just arrogant. So I've been very, very lucky. When I was very young, I was just finished my PhD at UCLA. I met a very famous man named Dr. Paul Hersey. And he and Ken Blanchard invented something called situational leadership. So I was able to, I told Paul, I want to be like these guys when I grow up, like Paul, like Ken Blanchard. And I said, look, I'll sit in the back of the room and I'll follow you around, sit in the back of the room, serve coffee, do anything just to learn. Well, that was smart. So one day he got double booked and Ken couldn't do it either. He said, can you do what I do? I said, I don't know. He said, I'll pay $1,000 for a day. I was making $15,000 a year. I was brought up very poor, and I was a 28-year-old kid. I mean, $1,000 a day to a 28-year-old kid 47 years ago, that was a lot of money. I said, yes, sir. So I do a program for the Metropolitan Life Insurance Company in New York. They're incredibly angry when I show up because I'm not him. But I got ranked first place of all the speakers because I'm funny, having a good time. The other speakers are boring. They say, oh, send this guy again. He's good. Send him again. So he called me up and said, you want to do this again? I said, yeah, I'll do this again. So that's how I got into leadership development. And in coaching, I was working with the CEO of a company called Warner Lambert, big drug company at the time. And he said, I have this young guy working for us, young, smart, dedicated jerk. It'd be worth a fortune to me if you could change that kid's behavior. I said, I like fortunes. Maybe I could help him. He said, I doubt it. I came up with an idea. I'll still work with the kid for a year. He gets better pay me. If he doesn't get better, it's free. You know what he said? Sold. There was nothing called coaching. I just made this up. He got better, I got paid. And for 45 years, I didn't get paid if my clients didn't get better. My whole coaching was done pay only after the results.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great way to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable as well, right? It's not just, oh, do the work. No, like we need to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, you can always tell someone believes what they're saying. You ask them one question. Do you want to bet on it? You want to bet on it? And they say they believe it, but they don't bet on it. They don't believe it so much. They say, here's the money. They believe it.
So through all of those experiences, what do you think is the most counterintuitive aspect of leadership that many struggle to grasp and incorporate in their work?
Well, I'm going to answer that from two dimensions. First, a dimension for, as a coach, what I've learned. And then second, what I teach in terms of leaders, what I've learned. Both important, and they're both related. First, what have I learned as a coach? The number one variable for successful coaching is not the coach. It is the person being coached. So there's a great leader named Alan Mulally. Alan, probably the greatest corporate leader in the world in the last 30 years. He was at Ford. The stock was at $1.01. He left, it was $18.40. Stock goes up one